Welcome to the Failing Upward Club. This is a space where we reflect on the lessons of things in the past that didn't go to plan and work out what we can do better in the future to make sure we don't repeat the mistakes of the past, but also learn how to grow and improve going forward. I'm Danny Tyrrell, your co-host, with my other co-host, Michael Bridgman. We're two of the previous founders of a company called DataCo that went through an almighty collapse at the end of 2025, and we started the Failing Upward Club as a way of us reflecting on many different aspects of a business and nearly going through a little bit of therapy, to be perfectly honest. And it's turned into a really nice little initiative that we've been able to think through a whole lot of different ideas and concepts that we shaped for the past, start to bring on some interesting individuals to talk to as well. And today is actually quite an interesting episode because it's hot off the back of what is the rebirth from the whole DataCo experience. So it's been a big week, Mike. How are you feeling after the last few days?
Oh, I'm ecstatic. No, it's been a good couple of days, mate. Obviously, this isn't something that's obviously just fallen out of the sky in the last couple of days. We've been working on this initiative for the last couple of months, but it's great to have the new baby out into the market and to be kind of talking about it more broadly. So yeah, very, very excited. And I don't know if you want to jump into kind of what it is. I don't know if that's it for now for this episode, or we kind of park that. But yeah, just generally, it's good to be back out there and kind of it's great to be seeing the support we're getting from some old clients and friends in the industry, and just very excited to get after it.
No, absolutely, man. I totally agree with the sentiment. KICO Labs is a new entity which has been birthed out of DataCo. I'm really struggling to speak here. I thought I was going to lose it during that intro as well, Mike. I was like, fuck, we're going to have to stop and reset. But
in Phoenix. No.
It has been Phoenixed. Yeah, it's come out of the ashes.
There we go.
But yeah, KICO Labs is a new entity that we've stood up and we've announced to market this week. Obviously in a very similar domain to what we were doing at DataCo, but a lot of the, part of what we've been reflecting on as we've been going through the Failing Upward Club really aligned to, if you're going to go and do it again, what do you do differently? What do we take as the learnings forward? How do we reshape it? And it's actually made it a very exciting initiative to follow, because you get this nearly immediate chance to right certain wrongs of the past or to double down on things that we thought were working and hopefully will work again. And so far the response has been really encouraging, which is awesome. Obviously this is the start of it being a little bit more open to the world, but as you said, this hasn't just fallen out of the sky. We've been doing some things over the last month or two, really starting to shape for this. But what I thought, Mike, that we could focus on for today, which is just a nice lane of kind of learnings from the DataCo days that really start to go into where we're thinking about with KICO now, really is back on, it's more about the mindset, and particularly the founder mindset. There's a lot which is said around people who are founders and how they think and how they act and how they conduct themselves, I guess you could say, as they go through a business. But you don't really know these things until you go and you do it yourself and you think about, all right, who do we want to be as founders of a business, kind of first-time founders, or certain things we took into the DataCo journey, and now as second-time founders going into KICO, there's a whole lot of things that we will learn from and evolve and adapt of who we are going forward. So I thought this was a good area of focus for today's conversation, really to unpack a little bit, kind of going all the way to the start of the DataCo journey and thinking through really what are the things from a mindset perspective that you took into that journey. Like, what are the experiences of the past? And I think we've touched a little bit about on both of our backgrounds, but what are the core things of your experiences of the past which really influenced how you were thinking at that point in time? I think we can then move it a little bit to how that evolved as we went through the DataCo journey. What are the kind of key things that shifted how we were thinking as a founder, and then really how that's changed as the output of that process? What do we really learn through going through the unwinding of DataCo that's taken into a new journey, and why we're even thinking about doing this whole thing all over again? So maybe let's start from the start, Mike. Like, what are some of the things that you think really influenced just how you were thinking and why you were thinking about going into a startup, and anything that said, no, I think I want to go into this kind of concept of being a founder or build a business or really start from the scratch? Like, what really pushed you into that journey?
Yeah, so I think for me, what I'd recognized through kind of the first, I don't know, third of my career, or the early sort of first 10 or so years of my working career, was that I felt most motivated and excited in environments where I could learn and kind of be pushed outside of my comfort zone in some way, shape, or form. And really, that's what gave me motivation to show up for work. That was also coupled with actually being genuinely passionate about the work that you're doing. And a part of that is kind of wearing the risk of showing up genuinely passionate about the work you're doing and kind of the change you're trying to make, or the initiatives you're getting after. And so it's hard to kind of describe how that feels sometimes, but I think for anyone maybe listening to this that operates inside of a very, very large corporate environment, those things don't necessarily help you inside of a large corporate, or I experienced in some of these large corporate environments definitely the kind of too much passion, too much kind of risk on, too much ownership, too much kind of getting out there and kind of having this sort of sales mindset aren't necessarily the things that people that navigate those organizations in the best way really do day in and day out. It's much more about being calculated and being careful and kind of not saying the things that potentially should be said. So I very much wanted to kind of be in an environment where I could just get out there and get after it and sort of own my own destiny a little bit. Team composition and working with people that you genuinely enjoy working with, massively important for me. So I was very, very fortunate early on in my career to land a role at Nike, and I spent about 9 years there. But that was an incredibly fun organization to work with at a high level, but I was really lucky to have a great boss and mentor at that business that really over-invested in kind of the team, and again felt very passionately about bringing good, smart people together and kind of giving them enough space to go and play and get after things. And that experience kind of just ingrained in me that there is this amazing way that you can bring work and team together and have just like an awesome time at work and do amazingly good work at the same time. And that was one of the things that I would always been kind of looking for after that time. I think you and I started working together very early on at our journey in ANZ, like pre-DataCo. And it was kind of one of those things for me that it was like, oh yeah, Danny's a pretty smart guy. He knows what he's talking about, and we have a good time working together. And I think it's just those little things, right? About, oh, do you feel like taking a risk? And is this new thing something you want to work on? Who are the people you're going to work on it with? And ultimately, I think we were both fortunate, but I very much feel fortunate that as we grew the DataCo business, first inside the kind of ANZ innovation function, we brought on new people, diverse people, very different backgrounds, ages, like all that kind of stuff on paper, very different people, but ultimately just kind of gelled around like doing good work, working hard, but like having a great time and kind of, being about the people through the journey as well. So, yeah, that's my thoughts, mate. Maybe I'll turn the microphone back to you and see what you think kind of shaped your mindset coming in.
No, I think before I kind of go into my own ones, I think like reflecting on what you're saying, it sounds like there are a lot of those components to it which do lead to what the attraction of building a business really is, which becomes more about how do you control your own destiny and how do you do it with a team who's exciting. But even as you spoke through right at the start, it's like nearly this frustration of how things operate within large organizations in some of those areas sometime. And I think I had a similar background in terms of having a great career arc where I learned a lot of things. I did a whole lot of different industries, different aspects, different kind of functional domains of things that I did through a career all the way up to the point where we got to DataCo. But really like that kind of drive to say there's got to be a better way of having a career, of running through life. I think I naturally, growing up, always had the kind of the mindset that there is a way that you can like have your cake and eat it to a certain degree. And I think some people just fall into say, oh, this is what I have to do. I'm in this one organization. I started here as a grad and they kind of roll down the road and it feels like, oh no, I can't go do anything else because this is just the path I know.
Mm.
But really, it's not until you jolt yourself out of some of those patterns that you realize there's so many ways you can make a living in this world. And the concept of going and building a business is quite a daunting one. But really, it's totally accessible to so many people if they're willing to kind of take on the risk and just go and see what they can do. Like obviously there's a whole lot of things around your life situation that we're not sitting here struggling to be on the street and just fighting for food. That makes it an incredibly privileged position to even start here. But I do think there was this natural curiosity that fed me through my early career around thinking about a better way to pull things together, and a growing frustration, I think, of domains I did in the past that didn't quite satisfy that full itch in terms of taking something to actually deliver value. I've spoken before in a range of settings around my time working in consulting, which was a fantastic journey from a learning perspective, and you get to work with people who are incredibly motivated, who are incredibly smart, and you do some awesome things. And sometimes the client relationship allows you to do some incredible things with a client, but there's so many instances where you just get to the point where you don't get to deliver on what your thinking and ideas are. And back in that day, it was literally like, here's a PowerPoint, here's all this thinking that we did for ages. This actually, you've spent, I don't know, a month or two like going super, super deep in this domain and you're pumped about it. And all of a sudden you're like, good luck. Like if you don't sell another piece of work, then they're possibly not going to do anything and they maybe never had the intention to anyway. So I think there was that frustration from how do you go and test something else that always kind of went into this space. But I think the other one that really kind of influenced how I was thinking and maybe taking that on from it's fine to go and, again, we had this conversation with Gads recently on here. It's not like, oh, I'm fine to fail, but it's the concept of like knowing that it's not always going to happen. And if you want to go and do something, then you've got to have this kind of resilience baked in to get to one of those goals. And I think a lot of that came from the sporting background, actually, more than anything else, where both yourself and I came from reasonably high-level sporting backgrounds. I used to work in sport for a number of years as well. And it's just, you kind of know things are hard. It's hard to achieve great things. It's not an easy thing to win the national championships or to qualify for the Olympics or to do whatever it is at whatever level of sport. And actually the journey of going through and working hard and setting like ambitious goals and putting yourself out there to go and do it, and to have the times where you don't win or the setbacks or the times you lose the gold medal match or whatever it was, it kind of builds this natural resiliency to say, hey, no, I am okay to not win at something, but I have the drive to always say, I want to do better next time and I want to go and improve and find something else. And I think that kind of led into this natural, there's an arc of that in the startup landscape, which is, it's a supercharger for learning and for trying and failing and kind of getting that hit of dopamine when something does go right or you win a deal or whatever it is. So I think it was a few different things that kind of led me on the journey. And starting in the DataCo journey was a little bit like there's probably certain things from a founding perspective that you're just a little bit naive from, right? You're just like, oh yeah, you're kind of still a little bit in the corporate mentality. You haven't quite learned some of the harder truths of really building a business or going through the harder things that we've been talking through in some of these conversations about going through governance or what it means to get through contracts or sell, all of those things. Maybe you haven't fully learned when you're not behind a big beast. But I think as a starting point, there was really always that kind of drive and passion to improve and do something which was genuinely interesting and try to take ownership of it.
Yeah, I like that. Just to pick up on one point, as I reflected while you were talking, just as it relates to kind of the risk of joining a startup. Again, I think our journey was a little bit unique from a typical startup in that we were kind of still within inside of the corporate, the mothership on inception. So we didn't probably take that full risk on right at the start. That kind of came later, which was nice because we got to test and sort of prove a few things before we really had to take the big leap of faith and put, risk on the line and kind of go down that path more seriously. But I think through the experience of my, first 10 or 15 years of work, I think the thing that you kind of realize is that there's no job, and I think this is increasingly true, and this is only going to accelerate. There's no job that's actually like secure. So, Nike's this amazing business and it's changed a lot in the time that I'd left. But I think when I joined, there was three, if not four people that were celebrating over 30 years at the company. And this is like a small local business with, at that stage, only 120 odd people in the head office. So like these incredibly long tenured, loyal, like the people that literally stood up the company locally when it first started. And, one round of redundancy and a couple of those people are gone. You're like, fuck, that's pretty brutal, right? And then your boss goes, well, yeah, mate, this is kind of how it goes. Every like 3 to 4 years, this is what happens. Big global company shift. Then I moved and went to NAB and saw kind of, that innovation function effectively be folded just off the back of the fact that it was started by the CEO that was no longer around and kind of didn't have a sponsor and funding, and that gets killed, and and plus another enormous round of corporate redundancies. We've seen that across the market and they're only rolling out now, right? So once you bring in that perspective, then you're like, well, hey, the only thing that I'm going to risk here is actually stagnating in my career. And as you correctly pointed out, if I really want to accelerate my learnings, if I really want to kind of build competence and confidence in new areas, then having a crack at a startup's actually like a really good way to do that. And I think if nothing else, you kind of get the confidence to know you could back yourself into probably not even just the domain that you were in when you jumped out, but actually now I've worn all these different hats and I've got so much more experience of how the world actually works and the challenges that go on inside of a business, that I'm way better positioned now if it's a 2-year journey, a 5-year journey, or a 15-year journey, whatever that looks like. So, I think that's probably one that I didn't call out initially that was incredibly important as well.
No, it's such a good insight, and it's a really important lesson that I think a lot of people just don't see. Because as you said, people look at the large organizations and they just say that's stability and that's low risk. But as you said, you're just like pushing risk to another part of your life, really, or to another part of your career. Yeah, exactly. And we're seeing that more and more with what's going on with the AI technology boom, which is coming through. It's like some people are stuck there, like who are maybe not old enough to get to the point where they're going to eject out of a career and they're about to retire anyway, but they're probably, I don't know, they're mid 40s maybe, like mid to late 40s, and they're sitting there being like, actually, I've been at this organization for 20 years and I've just got really good at their processes, and I've got no experience in anything that's like slightly technical. I've no like what broader network outside of the internal political system that's what this organization is. And we saw that last year at ANZ Bank when what happened? They get a new CEO, and what happens? Most of the executive move on. And once they move on and a whole bunch of other senior people move on, the whole political infrastructure just resets. So you can't always rely on that. And I think the lens that actually going and starting something yourself and having that freedom actually lowers risk to a certain degree in what you do is a really important one to take. And I think the other aspect that you pointed out before was there's different ways you can start to navigate these. You don't have to, like we always talk about the rock climbing an analogy for a career. I'm not sure if I've said this on any of the podcasts in the past, but it's like your career is like this rock climbing wall where generally as you're going up the wall, you move one limb at a time. And when you're doing rock climbing, it's better to just move one arm and then one leg and another arm and another leg. And maybe you're doing a crazy move and you have to get an arm and a leg going at the same time. Like as soon as you're trying to go, two hands at the same time, there's a bit more risk. But if you're trying to jump the whole thing and you're just launching off the wall, throwing your whole body towards something, like the risk is huge. And a career generally is a little bit like that, where people do, I'm going to take on a new role, or maybe I'm going to go to a new domain, or I'm going to, and you move little limbs as you go. But I think the important thing is you're still moving, you're still navigating your way up the wall. And whether that means people going from industry into something like consulting, which is like a mini explosion of experience across multiple different businesses. I think the corporate venture capital space or the corporate innovation space nearly goes onto this in between. And that starts to be like, oh, it's a little bit more like a startup, but it's still a little bit more secure. And that's honestly got some other problems. And I think, again, you said this earlier, it's like there was a certain risk which was taken away by the fact that we built DataCo through that mechanism. But that risk actually just moved to another area. And like we didn't deal with that risk early, so I was like, if it failed, the safety net's kind of still there, but then the risk moved more down the line. So when it was being successful, all of a sudden that risk was way bigger than it would have been if you'd done it yourself. There's always, I think every decision that people make throughout their careers are always just a balance of risk. And just because you think this is a low risk path now doesn't mean that's the low risk path in the long term. And having that wider view of what you need to do, not just in 2 or 3 years time, but over 20 years plus more of a working career, whatever you're going to have, is a really important mindset to have.
Yeah, love it, love it. Well, maybe if we move ahead then, Danny, and you can kick us off on this one then. So if that was the mindset coming in to the DataCo journey, how about if you reflect and think about what evolved in your mindset during the DataCo journey?
Look, I think the biggest thing from saying there was this like founder mindset that we had to evolve as we went through the journey, there's a couple of aspects to it. One of them, I think, was nearly the forced, because of the structure that we came from and because of this low risk and it's backed by a bank kind of mentality, you nearly had to put this additional urgency and build the risk in your mind. We always knew that it was a risk being so closely associated with the bank. We knew that if we weren't able to do it independently and we just kind of operated in like a speed of what something that was going on with the bank, we would never be successful. But there was always this little like safety net that's there. It's like you got the training wheels on and you're trying to ride a bike, and it doesn't matter how much your kid knows, or actually I can balance, the wheels are there, that it's like, oh, I can just relax a little bit. It's not like you take off the training wheels and you're like, if you stop pedaling, you're coming down, kiddo. Like that's just the way to do it. So we had to build this additional sense of there is a big strategic partner here and there's access to capital and those sorts of things, but we can't rely on it and we have to be able to push it. So I think there's that mentality and why that's important and what you need to then look at and conduct your business and how that's important. I think that was part of the mentality, which it wasn't like, it's not like we were doing it off the skin of our own teeth and we had to go and get that. I think that was a mindset we had to try to develop. And that obviously through to the end has some other kind of learnings that you get through there. And maybe it's like, could we have done certain things different with a mentality perspective when we did it? Even just the urgency of what you're trying to hustle. We've spoken in the sales one about farmers and hunters and doing the hustle versus the strategic long time play and letting things come to fruition. It's a incredibly tough balance. So I think there's a whole lot around that mentality, which was an evolving thing as we went through the company. But I think one of the other ones, which I don't know if this was necessarily a new mentality. I think it's something that I have a reasonable grounding in anyway. But one of the biggest thing that happened throughout our journey of DataCo is we literally had a team member die. Like we had a team member pass away midway through building a company. We've got less than 10 people in a company and someone passed away completely unexpectedly. Like literally just didn't show up to a stand-up call. Like that was the nature of it. Like spoke to him on a Wednesday afternoon, doesn't show up to stand up on Thursday morning, and he's passed away at nighttime on Wednesday. And I think going through that experience as a team and with people just also it also just highlighted how much this stuff doesn't really matter. And having that mindset of, yes, this is important and I'm trying to build a business, but at the end of the day, and it's a good one to reflect on once the business itself dies, it's like the business can pass away and that's fine. Like that's completely fine. I'm still here, you're still here, we're still sitting here doing some random podcast that three people are listening along to. Like,
Four. I met another one
four.
on the weekend.
We added someone
Oh,
else.
five. Five. I actually got a LinkedIn message from someone the other day saying, "Love it, keep going."
There you go. Look at that. Five people now. I did get the thumbs up from Auntie Heather recently, so she's definitely still following along. Um, but yeah, going through that path, it's like it actually just doesn't matter, and we always kind of catastrophize some of these things. It's like, oh, what happens if I lose my job, or what happens if this thing just fails and we don't make it? Like the truth is, you're probably going to be completely fine. I think if you've got enough of you've done the right things to build the skills and the relationships and all of those things, and you conduct yourself in the right manner. That sure, there's some instances where something could go catastrophically wrong, and you've defrauded someone and you end up going to jail, or who knows? Like, there are some things that can be more dire consequences, but for just a business closing down, like, it just doesn't matter that much. And we always lose sight of that from a mentality perspective, and having that mentality of like the hunger and the grind, and I need to work, like, I really don't want this to fail, but also having that balance to say, I'm not going to be overwhelmed by stress, or by, like, I just conduct myself in such a way that everything else falls apart to sacrifice for this. Because when you go through someone actually passing away mid-business, you're like, you know what? What's important is that we do continue to stay healthy, and we do continue to be there with our family, and we do continue to just enjoy the process we're going through. Like, it's the process which is the most enjoyable from that. And I think if it's something that you're building into that mentality, and you kind of got to have that as a founder, yes, you've got to have the hustle, but you can't. I think anyone who's doing the hustle just to kill themselves is like, what's the point? Like, you're going to get a massive exit, and then you're going to be like completely wrecked, and you've lost your family because you never saw them, and your kids don't remember anything of what you do. Like, I don't know. I think there's a way you can do. I don't think it's one or the other. I think there is a balanced way where you can be incredibly ambitious, you can work super hard at what you do, put the hours in the right way, but still have a wider balance. It just may not be 9 to 5 balance, but again, is 9 to 5 really a balance? Is probably what I'd argue.
Yeah, I think that was really well put. I heard a concept the other day, and it just shows how much I just listen to podcasts and don't actually retain them or do the thinking afterwards. But the concept was presented, and I liked it, and I'm going to go back and try and find it. But this kind of concept of being like passionately sort of disconnected, almost like you're working very, very hard and you're going to give it your all, but you also then in equal measure understand that you don't control all the outcomes, and like there's these external forces and things that are just going to happen. So whilst you're going to commit fully and you're going to have a crack, it's not, to your point, should it not go your way, like it's not going to be soul crushing. So it's just kind of holding those two sort of opposing things in tension at all times to say, yeah, part of what I want to do is work really, really hard. And there's this sense of achievement, and achievement is just such a wonderful feeling to have in your life. But at the same time, like if I fully commit and I know I've committed, then if things don't go my way, well, actually, I'm just going to just realize that that's like the external factors. And I think in a startup, as we've learned, market timing and luck, frankly, just plays such an incredibly important role. And if I think about kind of some of the things that we learned whilst we're in the journey, and again, these aren't necessarily just a mindset piece, but I think one of the most valuable things that I've taken out of the kind of DataCo journey is that last, literally, as painful as it is, the last kind of 6 months where I genuinely feel that we had achieved product market fit. And I think for the first time over that journey, we spent a lot of time building, a lot of time structuring a partnership with a bank to get access to data, and then finally in market. And it's just amazing to feel the momentum and to like genuinely feel it, to have days where you kind of can't keep up. The inbound starts to happen. It's the market like pulling your product out of your business because they need it now. And there's all these things that we've learned about why certain industries need things at certain times, and that's valuable. But for me, that kind of having that learning and understanding that feeling is definitely something that when I think about how we're approaching KICO, it's like that is the thing we're searching for, and that's the thing we need to identify a lot quicker. And I feel very fortunate that like now I kind of literally like innately know what that feels like. Because I think you want to hang on to the dream for as long as possible, and probably even when we didn't have it at times, we thought we did. We were telling ourselves the story that we were nearly there, and when you look back, we were further from being there, and there were things we needed to do. Maybe we could have accelerated, maybe not, but it's just having that clarity around what that feels like when you get it. I think is awesome.
No, absolutely right. And I think that is the addictive feeling as well. Like when you do see a business start to go and you're like, oh man, this is like, those wins really do get you going. But I think there's a nature of it. And this is like, I know we haven't gone through the big successful exit, but I have spoken to people who have gone through their own personal exits. And like you realize this nearly like emptiness that comes after that for them. Because there's a certain aspect where their baby, which they created, goes to die as well, because it gets sucked into a big organization and then all of a sudden it's not what it was. And I think you realize part of it is, and I had this conversation literally with my wife earlier today, the getting to the realization that the thing that is the best out of all of this is actually the journey. Like it's actually going through the process. And she had a tough, like it's been like a very intense week with a number of different things going on and some client activities and a whole lot of different things. But we were talking about it, just eating some quick lunch and saying, like, this is just like, it's the same as when you, like, again, I go back to the sporting analogies all the time. I just can't help it. That's where I was rooted in. But it's like part of going through the really intense times when you're just like, man, things are crazy. There's so many things going on. The time's really thin. I'm really struggling to juggle. And it's easy to feel a bit overwhelmed and stressed. You're like, you're going to look back at these type of times and be like, fuck, that's when you really felt alive. And it's like, the analogy I used from the sporting one was like, this is like you're in like going and winning a championship and you're there and you're doing the training and you're putting in the hours, and then you roll your ankle and you get injured and you can't go to full training and you're frustrated and you have to do extra rehab, and then you go to the tournament and you just miss out on the gold, or you get knocked out in the semis or whatever it is. Like that whole process is all part of the beauty of it, and then going and actually winning something. And if you're lucky enough to ever achieve something like that, like it's this really pure moment, but it's really the whole thing which is so fantastic. And you'll get to a point in your life where I look back now and I'm like, fuck, like I haven't played a game of volleyball, literally have not played a game of volleyball since 2015 when we won the national championships. I played like 10 years in the National League, and I finished in 2015, and I was captain of the ACT team, and we won the gold medal match, and it was awesome. And I literally have never played a game since. And it was like at that time, like, did I know that I would never be a part of all of those good things? And I look back now and I was like, fuck, I really miss some of that. And they'll get to a point where you'll be past this stage of your career as well, and you'll look back and you'll be like, man, that was a time to be alive. So I think bringing that kind of just presence, and this is something that goes more in the philosophical domain. I know it goes to so many other aspects of your life, but literally just being present and just feeling what you're doing and enjoying just the present moment is all you really can do. And if you're not doing that as you go along, then I think you're just missing out on the purpose of the whole thing.
Another one from this podcast I can't remember, Donny, is the concept of like never, like, fulfillment is a myth. Like being fulfilled in life is a myth, because as you said before, like, it's the journey that's the exciting thing. So you get there and you want something else, but like, so you can live life fully, but you can never be fulfilled. And kind of having that as your sort of mantra, it's like, yeah, I'm just going to get up and give it a crack, have a big swing every single day. But I know that as soon as I get there, that thing is, the goalposts are going to shift, and that's all part of the journey as well.
No, absolutely, Mike. So maybe if we get to, I know we're getting towards the end of this particular conversation, let's just go to then the output. So what are the things then that is there anything that's just changed holistically around how you think about what the founder mentality needs to be, what this kind of founder mindset you have going forward into KICO from the whole DataCo experience? Like, has anything changed? Has it just been an evolution? Was the end of last year kind of a jolt of anything that you previously thought? Like, where are you thinking is the important things to focus on going forward?
I think, like inevitably, you're just kind of older and wiser, and can see around some of the kind of dark corners now. To be frank, there's things that I'll look for in business relationships, partners, employees, backers, all that kind of stuff that I probably would have been a bit naive to, and I definitely was a bit naive to the first time around. And again, you know, I think it's cost us a bit of time and energy in the kind of wind down of DataCo, but let's hope the next time with a big success of KICO, we avoid some of those costs and downsides. So I think that's just, yeah, a bit older and wiser for the journey. I think it's reaffirmed the commitment to the team, the people, and that again is both like the people we bring into the business, but also the way we show up in market and treat our customers and do business and build our brand. And again, I think the other big one is just around like that, probably a willingness to accept the state of, I would say, the state of the business and kind of where you're at from a perspective of have we landed that product market fit or have we or haven't we? And as we're both running at the moment, there's definitely a different sense of urgency the second time around. That's partly due to funding, and it's partly due to just wanting to get out there and test a lot of things really quickly and figure out exactly where we're going to double down on this next adventure. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think one of the key things. Well, I don't know if this is the right time to take this away, but it definitely feels like we have that confidence. Is like just that knowing and that confidence that you can do it again. Like if things really fall into a heap, then we have the confidence that you can rebuild the heap and probably rebuild it faster than you could before. Even every time I've gone through my career and I've made these different jumps, it's always like, you know what? I could always go back. Like if I was really in a pinch, I'm sure I could get a role back in consulting. I'm sure I could get a role back in industry. I'm sure I could do something. And even like now, it's like, it's hard work, but I think you could build a business. And I think part of it as well is being like, it's actually the fun stuff to do. Like there's some of the things we've been doing now, even just to reset and rebuild from the ground up, you're like, the building part is super fun. And it's like trying to go out there and do all of these different aspects to it. It's just, I think, also appreciating that as we go to that kind of presence component that we said before. But I think if you've got the confidence that you're rebuilding yourself, it just becomes it feels like a win-win. And even at the moment, like, I think it's funny, we were working in a technology space where we're a tech startup, right? And we were kind of pushing things and evolving how we were operating, but we also did have a bit of a rhythm. We had a rhythm with our platform and what we were doing and what we're incorporating. All of a sudden you get pushed out, and we get pushed out in a wave where AI tooling is going absolutely mental, and you can just sit here on your computer and launch Claude Code and go and vibe something if you want to. That's completely unrelated. Like, we're being forced to reskill and take on the latest technology landscape from this AI perspective as well, which is a massive, massive long-term advantage. And it just means that while it seems like a silly thing, it's like the end of last year and we're literally without a job. It's like I actually feel in a better position probably than someone who has a job who's been there for 20 years and they're sitting there and being like, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do next. So I think there is just this, I think if you're going to have that founder mindset and you want to go and build something, you've got to love it. You've got to love the experience of doing it. You've got to believe that you can do it. And if it failed, you can do it again, and ideally not let it fail and do it again, because obviously you want to learn from what you've done in the past or learn from where the holes are and keep it going forward. I think just there's that underlying confidence of, no, it's actually fine. And I don't feel nervous about what we're doing. And maybe that's a false sense of confidence as we're going through. Maybe that's just because, I don't know, people give you lots of high fives and pat on the backs as you go through these journeys. But I don't know, I genuinely feel like when you get really good people together and you focus on whatever problem it is, you can do amazing things. And we're very, very fortunate that we've got a really core little gang of people that we do work with who are not just colleagues, but good friends now. And we all gel together and we love having these conversations, and we sit there and can kind of joke about whatever it is and then go and focus on client stuff and go through that journey. Like that's really the gift out of the whole process, I think.
Well said, Danny. anything that you want to say, get off your chest before I wrap this up?
No, I think that's a good. I think that's a good one for now. I think there's still obviously we're quite a few episodes into the Failing Upward Club now. There's still a whole lot of other things for us to unpack, and we're now going to be in this weird dual track where we're nearly going to be trying to apply the lessons literally in real time. And I know we kind of have been doing that as we go anyway, but there's still a ton of topics that I think we'll continue to break down into. There's some really curly ones, like we haven't touched on structure yet, and ownership and equity, and really some of the learnings and the pitfalls and the complications we went through before. There's lots of other like sub parts of businesses, like thinking through pricing and thinking through other things to do with marketing and content and all of those aspects. So I think now that we are more public with KICO, I think we'll still continue to push the learnings content through here. And I don't think the intention is to keep this any kind of promotional activity really to KICO. I think it's nice having this pure channel of just basic reflection, and I hope we can still use some of those DataCo reflections as we keep navigating through this. But ideally, as we said before, like we had Gaz on, and there's some other people who are lined up to come on the pod. I think having some other external views on what they've learned or what are important or specific domains is going to be appreciated. So anyone who is listening, who's still here, if we had 5 before, we're probably down to 2 now. Do keep hitting us up. Hit us up with ideas. Anytime you guys reach out and say stuff, it's actually super encouraging. And if you're like, no, wrap it up now, then we'll listen to that as well. So make sure you do. Yeah, we're not going to listen to that. We'll just still put this out until Arnie Heather stops listening. We'll be putting out episodes soon.
I love it. Well, lovely way to wrap it up, Danny. For those 2 people still listening, like and subscribe, as Danny said, drop us a note, and we'll be back next week or soon after that with another episode. Thanks very much for tuning in.